little lunch break here at home. So I have not been smoking very much. Like maybe once a week. I don't know, I just haven't been in the mood for some reason. And, my health is good. Since I had that heart ablation, I'm doing great. But, it's like the mid to late winter blahs. Most people take a Hawaii pill for that. But I just haven't. And there's just been a lot of turmoil and change in people around me. So I've been sort of, I guess, expressing that as grief, and I just really haven't felt like sharing that. It'll pass. It'll pass. And as the weather improves, and daylight saving time is part of that for me. I'm not a big morning person. I can be if I need to be, but so I like having a little more light in the evening. So we'll see. Springtime is good. With it comes a little rain, and there's still a few snowbanks around. I mean, wow, that stuff takes forever to dissipate. I'm surprised. But it's been cold in the evening. So, smoking a later CustomBilt. Notice how crisp that rustication is. Crisp. And it's a CustomBilt, not a custom dash built. What am I smoking in it? I don't know. I loaded this a week ago and I forget what I put in it. I'm sure it's an English mixture. And then this coming weekend is a week early for the Kitsap Pipe Club, so I'll go and have a smoke there. This last weekend I usually go up to Port Townsend and have a smoke with a buddy of mine. And I just wasn't in the mood. So yeah, springtime will be good. The springtime tonic. Honestly, the weather has not been conducive to getting out and exploring and doing all that either. So, you get kind of homebodied, and it's fine for the cat, but I'd rather be out and about. Plus now, I've got some cleanup in the yard. I'm looking at the entrance arbor, and it collapsed. It was getting a little rotty anyway. It was 30 years old. Some untreated lumber involved in its construction. And I did try and get snow off of it, but it collapsed. So I'll have to rebuild that. And then spring pruning of trees, fruit trees. Yeah, I mean, it's all an opportunity, so to kind of perk things up and improve things. So it's good. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I've been kind of getting into photography. I guess that's because I've been inside and I just haven't. It's been a distraction, a nice distraction. So I have this cool camera, but it's quirky as heck. It's a Sigma SD Quattro, and I picked up some used Sigma glass, some art glass for it, some lenses that are just like eye-poppingly sharp. But I'd also wanted to do use some vintage glass, play around with that, some medium format lenses and so forth. And wow, that Foveon sensor in the Sigma is just, again, so quirky that it often produces a green cast to things. And it's surprisingly hard to get rid of that in post-processing. So, and I'm kind of a minimalist in post-processing too. So that was irritating. and a little disappointing, I must say. So my solution, a buddy of mine has a Pentax K70, which is a nice, recent, still in production, single lens reflex from Pentax. So we were out a couple weekends ago, and I snapped a picture with the Sigma, and God, there was that green cast. So I asked him if I could borrow his camera, and we switched lenses because the Sigma mount and the Pentax mount are functionally equivalent. They don't transfer any electrical signals, so it's fully fully manual for anything other than a Sigma lens on the Sigma. The Pentax is a little more forgiving. So, no green cast. So I believe it's a sensor thing. I had thought it was the adapters I was using for the lenses were causing internal flare. It's the freaking sensor. So, I love that sensor. I'm not going to get rid of the camera. But the process I used to take pictures with that camera is also cumbersome, to say the least. It's more like medium format back in the film days, and honestly, almost, almost like large format. So, look at that sunshine. Oh, so great. So anyway, I picked up a couple of generations ago Pentax single lens reflex on eBay for cheap, in good condition. A K5. So people really like that sensor in the K5. So a Sony sensor. Used in Nikons and other cameras too. So Fuji makes their own sensors. Samsung makes their own sensors. Sony makes their own sensors. Nikon has actually started making sensors. And Sigma makes their own sensors, and that's it. So everybody else buys sensors from somebody else. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the situation. So anyway, we'll see how that works. It should be here in a day or two. And that stimulated a nice little conversation with a guy in Nevada, retired guy, who sold me the camera body. So that's a lot of fun. You know, there are relationships all around us. In fact, quite frankly, we have a relationship with everybody we run into. We may not develop that relationship, and we may not even acknowledge that relationship, but there is a relationship there. And so that's where manners comes in. You know, you don't just ignore somebody that you run into, you acknowledge them. But you're participating in a relationship. And any relationship, I think, profits from good communication. Especially the closer it is. Right? Right? You know that's true. So anyway, I love having these relationships. Short-term and casual, and, you know, we'll never meet. With some of these people I run into, like this guy selling this camera body. There was also a guy who sold me one of the large format lenses, and I had written him back and said, you know, there's this green cast to the photos. Not every one, and it varies. And so he said, I'll send this out to my brain trust, you know, like the fellow photographers he corresponds with. And so we had a nice little dialogue about all that. Never came to a conclusion. Because I could never really compare it with a different camera, because I didn't have one. So, anyway, that's kind of, it's interesting how everything kind of interweaves, ultimately. And we may choose not to participate in that relationship, or we may just acknowledge it with a little tip of the hat, you know. But it is a relationship. So the guy who sold me the lens, oh my God, he is such a crazy advanced photo guy. I mean, he has large format tilt shift cameras, you know, like Ansel Adams used, although he used Hasselblads as well. And he mounts a modern Sony body on the back where the 4x5 film would go. He's modified a plate for that. And then he uses different large format or even digital lenses, and uses the tilt shift function of the camera. And he has hooked up to that Sony body like a 7-inch screen that he uses to visualize what's happening on the sensor, like a live view screen. That's crazy stuff. That is just like, wow. I built a 4x5 view camera from a kit, a wooden one, back in college, thinking I was going to pursue 4x5 landscape photography. But God, the process was just too cumbersome for me. I just couldn't, loading film into each carrier in the dark in a camera bag, so you couldn't see what you were doing. It's all by feel. And it was just too much. But his way of doing it is like really cool, and modern, and yet it recalls historical, even 1880s, 90s photographic equipment. So it's just this great combination of new and old. And I would never have known that even existed if we hadn't started a little conversation, a relationship, about photography. So we had this one little pinhole of connectivity, and then that expanded because he was willing to have that sort of relationship where we knew we'd never meet. We knew, know nothing about each other, but it's so interesting, how that works. I love it. So, anyway, it's fun. It's fun. I'm learning a lot. I always do when I do this stuff. So, and I'll never make money on it, I'm sure. I mean, it's like I don't mean to. I don't intend to. I don't even suspect I will. But it's just fun to do it. And it kind of changes, photography kind of changes the way you see things. And the whole camera business is in turmoil right now because sales are... So that was a very limited market. But, and phones are getting way better. I mean, Huawei and some others are coming up with like 48 megapixel chips. And cameras haven't kept up because they should be integrating third-party apps. They should make sending your photos to Instagram really easy. They're more like old hardware companies, and they aren't as nimble in the software realm. So it'll probably take a relationship with a phone company to change that. Because there's a lot of stuff that could be leveraged to everybody's advantage. So, anyway, it's all very interesting. But again, it's in turmoil. So. Who knows what it'll be like in 2 years. Some rather dire predictions for the camera manufacturers. But I tend to be a bottom feeder and buy used anyway, so. So anyway, just about done with this pipe. Don't go away, son. Stick around for a while.